Episode 13 of season 3, Cup Mets podcast. I'm Ian Bosniak, joined alongside by Robert Renegas and Matthew DeSantis. Before we get going, remember to give us a follow on Instagram, YouTube, and X. We are at Cup of Mets. Subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Visit cupofmets.com to get your latest merch. And last but not least, be sure to download that SeatGeek app, punching code Cup of Mets at first purchase to get $20 off. Gentlemen, how are you? We'll start with Rob.
Well, and I already could tell it's gonna be a good week. I've recorded back-to-back episodes consecutively.
Attaboy.
So that's the first time in a long time. And the Mets are hot. So couldn't be more happy to start this Monday. I could sense it's gonna be a good week.
Matthew?
Yeah, I mean the Mets have been playing some good baseball, and there's no complaints really on what of how they're going about their everyday lineup construction, shit like that. There's just minor tweaks in terms of like guys like Jeff McNeil, a whole bunch of shit that we'll touch upon later in the episode. But doing well. It's officially summer. It's hot as fucking ass cheeks out here in New York. So I don't know. We'll jump into everything though. You know them vibes.
Yeah, speaking of sweating, I want to say it was the series in Chicago. One of the days, Francisco Alvarez. Yeah, it was the 11-1 game. Francisco Alvarez by the third inning, the jersey, the lovely Nike jerseys run by Fanatics. He's drenched. It's two different shades of gray. They got to fix that. It's
God.
lunacy. But yeah, both of you said Mets are playing well. That they are. They went ahead, took 4 of 6 on their latest road trip, took 2 of 3 in Chicago. But before that, took 2 or 3 from Texas. Before jumping into that, last night, the series finale against the Cubs, Edwin Diaz comes in the ninth inning to get a save opportunity. He's looked much better since coming back from the shoulder impingement. Gets checked for sticky substance, and he got kicked out, suspended for 10 games. The Mets now account for 33% of all sticky substance ejections. It just seems to me like ever since Steve Cohen bought the Mets, the MLB has been going after the Mets and going after Steve Cohen. Listen, they showed photos of Diaz's hand. To me, it looked like a decent amount of rosin and dirt. That's what was told to Carlos Mendoza, and Mendoza echoed it in the post game. And then Vic, whatever the hell his last name is, comes out and says, that it was definitely not rosin and sweat. So, do you think there's anything to this? And do you guys think that the Mets can make it by the next 10 games without Edwin and a man down?
Definitely not going to be easy, that's for sure. I mean, these are 10 kind of crucial games because we're like at that point right before the trade deadline where like you have to win these games in order to like go to ownership and be like, let's buy, let's like go grab a player or two. So I mean, I think it's gonna be the bullpen's gonna have to really step up now, especially guys like Reed Garrett and stuff, considering that Sean Reed Foley went down as well. So um I don't as for Edwin and the whole rosin thing, like his hand really did look pretty sticky. So I think he's kind of got caught dead to right with whatever he was doing. As the terms as in you were talking about us being 33%. They just like you're right. They hate the Mets. Like they hate us because they ain't us. You know what I'm saying?
A lot of people are
Uh,
happy that they ain't us, to be honest with you. But
There's
yeah,
a lot of people out there that are happy that they ain't us, but you know what I mean.
yeah. Again, to piggyback off what Matt said, definitely not the best timing for this to happen. Obviously, again, it's not like it's 10 days suspension, it's a 10-game suspension. So again, this week's kind of important. We got the Yankees coming into town and then the Houston Astros for three for the weekend. Not the best time to have your closer miss this week games. Um I'm also going to join the devil's advocate side. It did look weird. His hand looked really, really sticky. There was some gray shit on his fingers, which that again, I understand rosin can do that, but it looked like it did not look good. And Edwin was very defensive, so I do want to believe him. He said check his belt, check his hands, shake his hand, and this and that. But when your hand looks like that, and the Mets are accounted for 33%, it's you gotta have that in the back of your mind, like what's going on in that bullpen, and or to Boz's conspiracy theory, the MLB's after us. So terrible timing. That's all I'll say.
I mean, I'm not gung ho on the idea because it was Max Scherzer, then Drew Smith, and now Edwin Diaz. But I'm not gung ho on the idea that MLB is after us. But it's interesting. And the other thing too is we know that rosin with sweat and dirt can clump together. So that's definitely the gray stuff that was on his hands. And the other thing as well, we don't see every single pitcher's hands that come into a game, right? We don't it's essentially umpire's discretion, right? We don't see somebody who gets their hands checked. The umpires deem it okay. For all we know, it could have a decent amount of rosin on it, but it's not rubbed with dirt, so it doesn't look darker. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like we don't know what a normal hand looks like, and then we don't know, right? I mean, you and I were pitchers, and you could go ahead and use rosin and get your hand in a certain capacity, but it definitely did look sticky. I'm not arguing that sense, but at the same time, the other thing that has come into question is why haven't MLB allowed the Mets players to go wash their hands? And that's another thing that's completely umpire's discretion. They can allow players to leave the field for a minute and go wash their hands and then come back and get rechecked. I'm not sure if it was in his glove already, so that's why they just tossed him rather than, give him the opportunity to do so. But just kind of sucks. You guys said it best. Crucial series coming up against the Yankees and the Astros, who have been playing better. And then we have a 4-game set in Washington. So he's going to miss 2, 3. That's 9 games. And then he'll be eligible to come back, I believe, July 5th or something along, July 4th, something along those lines. But either way, not good. Who do you guys see closing in the interim?
Reed Garrett, probably. I mean,
Yeah,
who
I would
else?
s- I would say Reed
Who-
Garrett, maybe Jake Diekman. I think it's kind of situational.
Adrian
Um,
Yeah.
Hauser.
Adrian Hauser, yeah. I would say Reed Garrett, maybe Danielle Nunez. It's all situational.
It's
I
all
just said it.
situational, yeah. And
Yeah.
I think the Mets bullpen has pitched better as of late, so they could survive. I would really appreciate a 5-5 or 6-4 without Edwin Diaz.
6-4 would be nice. That would mean that we're at 500. There is a conspiracy that's going on outside of my conspiracy regarding MLB. There's one going around on X right now, kind of humorous. There could be something to it. At the same time, I don't know.
Yeah, I low-key wish you got my reaction when before
Yeah,
you told me that. Yeah.
yeah. So the conspiracy going on right now is that Tomas Nido, now the catcher of the Chicago Cubs, tipped off to Craig Counsell that Diaz uses a bunch of sticky stuff, and Counsell told the umps to ensure that they check him, and that was why he was thrown out. Listen, I would like to believe I
Sorry.
don't think that Tomas Nido is friends with Edwin Diaz and Francisco Lindor, especially, right? So imagine if he's been using sticky stuff for a minute and that's why he's been as effective as he is. And then he just tipped off one of his best friends and now his best friend's going to suck or not going to be as effective. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily see that as a scenario, but it definitely is something that has been going around the Twitter sphere or the X sphere, I guess you could say. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, bro, that shit would be cold-hearted if he were to do something like that. Thomas Nino was lucky that he was employed by the Mets for 12 years.
Who else
So,
would have who else would have given him 5,000 chances?
nobody,
Yeah, I
not
mean,
many other teams, bro. If he was, let's just say, a Los Angeles Dodger, a Texas Ranger, he would have been gone 6 years ago and was hitting 211 and
that's
like,
unfair to say.
I don't know, bro.
Tomas Nido is a good guy. No, but
He might be.
it's
Yeah, we
the
don't
only reason
employ
I'm
people just
laughing.
because they're nice, though.
The only reason I'm laughing is because I'm like when you guys told me that my reaction one and two, I'm just scanning through X and it's like first it was Luis Guillorme who ratted out the Mets about the Phantom IL. Now it's Tomas Nido. Like it's just I'm just this conspiracy theories are just hilarious sometimes in regards to the Mets. But again, who you never know. When Evan and Tiki are talking about it on WFAN, that's how you know maybe it might be true, it might be not. Who knows? That's kind of a funny conspiracy theory in my eyes, because yeah, like you said, we've employed Tomas the last 12 years. We've helped him out, and then he just does that, I guess, to get in spite. But we'll see. Hopefully, good karma comes our way.
I I think, Matt hit it on the head. I just think it would be really cold-hearted. But again, who knows? And the way that players, especially backups, have been moving around, not necessarily just the Mets organization, but this season, there's been a lot of roster moves, lots of transactions. We don't know how long Tomas Nido is going to be a Chicago Cub. So I'm not sure he's going to make that full blown a thing necessarily last night, but definitely not the most ideal timing for Edwin Diaz to hit the suspended list. Matt, as you mentioned, Sean Reed Foley also hits the IL with a shoulder impingement, follows Diaz. He definitely looked like there was something going on in his last outing. I think we tweeted it out, but that sucks. But again, there is confidence brewing still in the grimace era of the New York Mets. 4 of 6 on the road against the Rangers and the Cubs. We'll start with the offense. It's propelling them, quite frankly. And, just three that are hitting the ball particularly well, especially since we spoke last, and they were three that we mentioned before. Brandon Nimmo has really turned on the Jets over his last 15 games, 4 home runs, 12 ribbies, 339 average, 406 on base percentage, 581 slugging percentage. Then you got Francisco Lindor over his last 7 games, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, 345 average, 375 on base percentage, and a 655 slugging percentage. So again, all OPS is over 1,000. And then last but not least, JD Martinez, who's gotten his average up to 290 over his last 7 games, or I'll do last 15 games, 4 home runs, 17 RBIs, 309, 415, and 600. Boys, these three are hitting the ball. I think that with these types of outputs, and we didn't even mention Pete Alonso in there, and he's hit the ball pretty decently. The only guy in this lineup right now that's not hitting is Jeff McNeil. Down the stretch, I truly do believe this lineup can do damage, especially if they continue to perform like this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And then another thing that they need to figure, David Stearns needs to figure out is what the fuck they're gonna do with Jeff McNeil. At some point, you're gonna just have to let him. He's gonna be rotting on our bench. But like, there's people in AAA, like Luke Ritter, who deserve their shot, bro. Like, don't let guys sit in AAA for years while have 16 home runs, 50 RBIs already in AAA, and like, like we've spoken about guys like DJ Stewart having a short leash. I think like the leash should be getting really short for those guys because we know what we're gonna get in them. DJ Stewart, there's a I'm pretty sure he still has another option left. We can send him back to AAA, but those guys hitting is great. Alvarez coming back hitting is amazing, but it's just like we're paying McNeil so much, a very nice chunk of money to do literally nothing. So that's an issue for us.
Yeah, just again, like what makes me happy to see the Mets offense kind of click is that these three guys you mentioned before, Brandon Nimmo, Lindor, and Martinez, they didn't blame anybody but themselves for not hitting when we started the season. They weren't pointing the finger. These are all three respected guys in the clubhouse, and it's just, it's fun to watch. Now they're playing with a little joy, as Steve Cohen tweeted out about Lindor. But Brandon Nimmo, got the money he wanted, locked him up for 5+, 6+ years, and his potential is showing. He's such an X factor to this lineup, whether he's hitting first, second, or third. I think that 2 hole is perfect for him, and he's starting to hit home runs opposite field, which is good to see as well. So again, just seeing those three stay hot and continue to be the seasoned veteran leaders that they aspire to be. It's good to see, man. Obviously, you mentioned Pete Alonso too, Baz. I would put his name in that category as well, but at the end of the day, you're always gonna have that 1 year deal, the 1 year left on the Mets looming. Am I gonna get traded or not? So I'd rather just focus on those three names, those table setters 1 through 3. I think they're perfect. They're playing awesome, and they're leading by example.
Absolutely. They're all playing outstanding. And you mentioned Lindor going the opposite field. The other thing, too, that really beleaguered him earlier on this season was the fact that he couldn't swing lefty. I mean, against right-handed pitchers, he was really performing poorly, and he's really turned that around. A guy like Francisco Alvarez, he's really turned on the Jets. He's up to 286. He's hit 2 home runs where the power department wasn't really coming into play much for him, despite him being on the IL for that time period. He's up to 286, 3 home runs, 16 ribbies. I would give you some more stats, but my computer's freezing. So Point blank, Francisco Alvarez looks great. And I think the most important thing, I don't know what the record is. I think the Mets are like 18-3 or 18-4 or something like that when Alvarez catches this year. He's really controlling the pitching staff well. You saw him signal out to who was it, Megill or I forget who it was, but that he wanted the
Sherman,
ball up. He wanted it higher. It could have
Sherman,
been I don't know who it was, but he was saying that he wanted the ball up, and then someone threw the ball up in the strike zone, fastball, and got the guy swinging. He's calling the games. He's instilling confidence in everyone. Edwin Diaz preached it. Sean Manaeus preached it. So I just think that all in all, Francisco Alvarez brings a different dynamic to the team. And I'm saying other things went wrong for the Mets once he got hurt. But once he got hurt, things really started going down the tubes. Alvarez is such an X factor in this lineup, and the way that he's now swinging. And then Vientos last night hitting at 451 dead centered in Chicago. That was a piss missile. These guys are maturating in this lineup. Bader and Tyrone Taylor are doing a good job in that third outfield spot. Are you guys seeing anything in Alvarez that's standing out to you?
Think like now he's getting his groove back. He got hurt, and before the injury, he was looking really good. So time will tell, but I think he's showing good command of the pitching staff.
Absolutely. So you posed the question earlier, Matt, that what do we do with Jeff McNeil? His OPS is down to 573. He looks just so lost at the dish. Every swing he takes, we've been going on and on about it for weeks. The fact that he's pulling the ball, not spraying to all fields, really the stance kind of looks long and he's taking a while to get around to the ball. He's not barreling anything up. He's making $15 million, I believe it is this year, because the front of his contract was a little light, and now he's making a little bit more money. I don't know what there is to do with him because his contract doesn't expire until the end of 2027, so we still have 3 full years with him. I to me, I would look to see if there's another team that wants to trade a pitcher that has a lot of money that's tied to him. Not a lot of money, but somebody who contract is expiring. And I'm going to bring this player up only as an example. And I don't know if this team would do it because they have a very good second baseman. But the Arizona Diamondbacks, for instance, if they decide that they're out of it, would the Mets take, I believe it's 20 to $22 million? Would they take Jordan Montgomery's player option for next year and get rid of McNeil for the next 3, let's say? And the Diamondbacks would only have to pay McNeil $12 to $15 million, whatever it is, for the remainder of his contract annually, opposed to spending that type of money on Jordan Montgomery. Like, I don't know if someone would do that. That would be a $10 million budget save for them next year. Obviously, they would be on the books further, but I think that that's the only way that they can right now get rid of Jeff McNeil, unless they pull a Houston Astros and eat the money like they just did with Jose Abreu. Like, I really don't know, but McNeil looks awful. I feel really bad for him, but he has no reason playing on this team. Like, I don't understand. Jose Iglesias is playing well. I don't get it. And as you mentioned, Luke Ritter's rotting in the minors.
Yeah, something's got to give, bro. Something's got to give. I know they're putting him in the lineup, hoping that, maybe he'll show something, but he's not showing shit. He should just, I don't know. Looks more of a golfer than a baseball player right now.
No, I think best case scenario, you trade him, but again, you got to find a team. You got to make it work. Obviously, in terms of like what you were talking about, Ian, whether you eat money or you find the team that's not in it, and they take on 12 to 15 million annually. But at the end of the day, he's going to be on the roster. He's here, whether he's playing every day or platooning. But at this point, I think after, you know, he'd probably have to play every like third or fourth game. Jose Iglesias is, in my eyes, the second baseman. He's got good hands. He could play anywhere. He's a great leader and he's hitting. So, you can't play if you can't hit, in my opinion. So Jeff McNeil should be benched.
I couldn't have said it better myself. McNeil should be benched. Iglesias is hitting 435 at bats. It's a small sample size, but still, you mentioned all of his other intangibles. He also, I guess he's an artist as well. He sings. His song is being played as the new home run song and the new song that's being played after wins in the locker room. So Iglesias definitely provides a big spark to the team. Him and JD Martinez are good friends from their days in Boston. I like Iglesias. Don't know what to do with McNeil aside from what I said, unless they just eat his money and they drop him. Either way, not a good situation, and definitely an area that the Mets should try to improve upon. But the offense has not been a problem as of recent. And the pitching hasn't necessarily been either. Luis Severino last night looked tremendous, struck out 10 over 6 innings, gave up 3 hits. Severino looks phenomenal. He improves to 5-2 with a 3.29 ERA on the season. And then Jose Quintana, who pitched the series opener where the Mets won 11-1, he went 6 1/3, walked one, gave up no runs, 4 hits, and struck out 8. That was the second consecutive start that he lasted 6 innings, picked up the wins both against them and the San Diego Padres on the 15th. What are we seeing from the rotation right now? Severino's been really good this season. That's a given. And Jose Quintana's finally starting to find his groove. He looks a little bit quicker in his motion. I'm liking what I'm seeing from both of these guys, and they're really holding down this rotation and giving the Mets a shot to win every 5 days.
No, yeah, Severino looked great. I think the fastball velo has been consistently there all season, 98 to 99, and he's been hitting spots, man. That fastball is his best pitch. It's his strikeout pitch. He really was pinpointing it to the point where he got the Cubs looking most of the time. And what stood out to me was that 12 pitch AB with Cody Bellinger. Kudos to him for fighting throughout that whole AB. But at the end of the day, 98 high and outside, painting Bellinger, expecting something else, just showing confidence too in his catcher Francisco Alvarez. Whether it's calling the game or making a pitch to block, it's fun to watch. Severino brings that good energy, and a guy like Jose Quintana, even, he's throwing his curveball 3-2 counts, his changeup 2-2 counts. Having more confidence in his stuff. I think Alvarez, obviously, like you said before, has a lot to do with that, but it's just fun to see. It's fun to watch seasoned veterans leading by example and pitching more than 5 innings. The Mets could do that. Who knew?
And they're
Yeah,
starting to do it with regularity, which is nice.
yeah. I mean, I want to see a few more good Quintana starts before I start saying "All hail Quintana." But I think he's definitely looked like a lot different than what he did at the beginning of the year. So I got to give him that. And he always one thing I've liked about Quintana, he always like keeps his head up, even if he gets shelled. Like he's decent with coming back with bounce back games. So as for Severino, bro, he might be the MVP so far of our staff. Um, I think
It's not a question.
he's looked great, and as we're gonna get into later about like trade deadline shit like that, he would be our biggest return in terms of trade deadline. I honestly think that we would get a fucking haul for Sevy, but we have to see it all play out. We have to see how we are in 2 weeks after the Diaz suspension, which does not fucking help this team when they're trying to get back to 500, and try and make it into midsummer, trying to get into a playoff spot. So another wait and see.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I agree. You kind of got to wait and see on those two when it comes to trades, but really encouraging for the Mets, who are kind of jetting their way up in the National League standings, only a game out of the wild card there. Definitely helping the cause. Sean Manaea has been doing a decent job as well, and we'll discuss him a little bit later. Tyler Megill is one individual, and we don't even have to talk about David Peterson. Peterson's been pretty good. He's 3-0 thus far this year. He's been a little shaky at certain points, running a high pitch count, but outside of that, he's been good. Tyler Megill, on the other hand, took the one loss in the Chicago series, only lasted 3 innings, gave up 6 earned runs, walked 3, gave up 5 hits, did strike out 6, but he just I'm not really a Megill believer. He's got the stuff. He absolutely has the stuff, whether it be the fastball, the splitter, or the fork, the American sport, right? He's got the curveball, he's got the changeup, but he can't put it together. And he always runs a high pitch count. Lasted 4 2/3 against Miami on the 11th. Granted, he struck out 8, only 5 innings against the Padres on the 16th. How much rope does he have? We know that he'll get another start when the Astros come into town, and then it looks like the Mets will probably write out a 6-man rotation. Most likely, Christian Scott or Jose Budo will be called up to be that 6-man once the Mets finish. Once they begin the Astros series. But how much rope should he have? And I mean, at what point do you take Tyler Megill out of the rotation? Because he just, to me, he's a liability at this point.
I wouldn't give him that much rope. I mean, his rope has been pretty fucking long with the years he's been around. At this point, when are you gonna start to be like, all right, this is I think what we have in McGill. I don't think he gives us spots. He gives us like some very spotty starts. Like he could either come in, he could either throw for 6 innings and strike out 8, or he's either going for 2 or 3 and giving up 6 runs. I feel like there's never anything in between. And I'm starting to think maybe the bullpen might be his best spot. Roll him out there. But you're right, they're gonna probably roll with a 6-man rotation soon. So we gotta really see.
So I'm gonna disagree with you there. If they were to have that idea of the bullpen, he would have been done it already, or they would have been trying it. Because in my eyes, you just see the potential, and the Mets clearly don't see him as a bullpen guy. They see him as that in that starting rotation depth. But again, he's just too erratic. He walks too many guys, which drives up his high pitch count. You know, and again, he's just inconsistent. That's really what it is. He's a borderline 6, 7, 8 guy on the depth chart in the MLB team. And again, the 6-man rotation might be beneficial for him.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely would be beneficial for him because he'd get to stay in the bigs. I could say I could tell you that much.
Yeah, but it gives him an extra day to work. That's
Sure.
one. And two, it's more than 5 days rest. Some people need that, especially with a guy like him who throws hard and has had history with arm problems.
Right. And I can agree. I can definitely agree with that. It can benefit anybody unless they're very regimented and they need every 5 days, right? His, his underlying stats are better than his 481 ERA. He does strike out hitters. He's in the 87th percentile when it comes to strikeout percentage, but he's giving up a ton of hard hits. Hitters are barreling up the ball. As we both echoed, he's walking a ton of batters. He's not getting a lot of hitters to chase either, despite the strikeouts and the whiff rate. So he's just an interesting case. And I don't know how much longer you can continue to try different things with Megill and hope for different outcomes, especially for a team that really has a realistic shot to make the playoffs. And it's funny that we can say that. I know that we mentioned that last week, but it's true. They can really make the playoffs. I just don't know if a guy like Megill is going to be able to get them there. I'm even, kind of hesitant to say that I think Peterson can help them get there despite his 3-0 record because he hasn't been getting a ton of swing and misses either. He's been running a high pitch count and you still just never know with him. I mean, his ERA is lowered to 3.97, but again,
He's a lefty. He's a lefty.
he's
He's pretty valuable.
yeah, he's a lefty. He's pretty valuable. But again, these are two guys that you're really relying on to eat up innings and to start these important games down the stretch. And, I just, to me, you're going to have to keep him out there. He's going to be in the, Megill, I'm saying, is going to be in the rotation until the All-Star game when the 17 games is up. And then the Mets will go from there and see who fits and who doesn't. But definitely something that I think needs to be addressed because Megill to me, and I've always thought that he looks more like a bullpen arm. I think that he would definitely benefit from, and he'd probably gain a few ticks on that fastball. When pitchers go to the bullpen, they tend to throw harder. And I think him going in there for an inning here, eating up 2, 3 innings when a pitcher struggles, I think that may benefit him a little bit. But again, right now the Mets need him in the rotation and he will be in there. Again, the Mets have 17 games in 17 days. A 6-man rotation is likely per Carlos Mendoza. Christian Scott most likely to return to the club. He's been lethal since being down in AAA, and he's struck out 16 and has only walked 3. So the command's been there, hasn't been giving up a ton of runs. I'm really, really excited to see Christian Scott back in the orange and blue. I think it was Joe DeMayo who put out, he works for SNY. I believe he put out top 10 prospect list today right here. I kind of disagree with a few of his choices, but he did say that Christian Scott is his number 2. And Maddie, what? Christian Scott was number 4 for you?
Yeah, 4. I believe
Right.
so.
Yeah. So Christian Scott likely to rejoin the rotation, and he's definitely a cog that will be able to help them get to the playoffs if he's up and performing like we know he can and that he's shown. Putting this all together, however, a report came out from Mike Puma the other day saying that despite the Mets trying to contend and potentially even buy, they are looking to potentially trade some of their starting pitching depth. And the names that have come up, most likely Quintana, Minaya, Severino. I'll let you guys give your thoughts on that first. But what do we think of that report? How do you feel about that, knowing that these guys are now finally pitching well? Not necessarily Severino, but these guys are pitching well. The Mets are finally playing well, and they still might sell off some of these pieces.
So I think they look at it like as a like I've said since I've started on this podcast. Steve looks at a lot of things as investment opportunities. Did my $10 million, did my $13 million this season, is there a possibility that it could net more assets for the future? So he thinks about a lot of things like that. As for a Quintana, you're not getting much for a Quintana. So if you want to trade him for a low level, low A pitcher or something like that, go right ahead. But I mean, and his production could be replaced with a Jose Budo. But then you start asking yourself, is Luis Severino's production going to get replaced with like a Christian Scott, which I think it possibly could. If somebody comes at you like an organization I'd be targeting is the Baltimore Orioles in terms of like if you're gonna go and trade Luis Severino because you want to have quality prospects, but then you want quantity as well. So if Baltimore is willing to offer three of their top 30 guys, like or something like that for Luis Severino, you got to highly consider that because Severino will be available again in the winter. So if it brings back a return where you can get high quality prospects, I don't see why you shouldn't do that, especially when we're still 16 games back. The NL East is not going to be the New York Mets. Let's be realistic about that. It's going to be a wild card if they're going to make the playoffs, which is still an if. We're not even at the All-Star break yet. We still have the trade deadline and stuff like that. So we have to see how they perform these next few weeks, and that's going to tell a lot about how the trade deadline is going to go for the New York Metropolitans.
So again, I think if the Mets are in it, I think they should. Well, not to get back into the Megill situation, but like I would like a package of like Megill and McNeil. Maybe they try to get something for them, um, and look into that. But if I would have to choose out of those three names that you mentioned, I think Severino and Minaya are a good possibility to be dealt. Again, not to reiterate what Matt just said, but if you're gonna get an offer you can't refuse, then you got to do it. Whatever's best for the organization now and long term. But again, this next week and a half, 2 weeks is probably gonna be the tail of the season. So again, we'll see what happens, and hopefully Steve and company make the right moves.
Within the article as well, or the tweet, I should say, Puma did mention the fact that the Mets are considering this because of the fact that Kodai Senga will be facing live hitters on Sunday, and they think that he can get 2 or 3 rehab starts, potentially 4, ahead of the All-Star break, and then he can make a return to the Mets post All-Star break. So they're talking about trading some of these pieces and bringing in Kodai Senga and Christian Scott and Jose Budo, because at the end of the day, you can't have 9 to 10 big league pitchers, starting pitchers, with only 5, potentially 6 spots. So I understand that. I I didn't even think of Megill, packaging Megill with somebody. Megill is somebody that I think a lot of teams look at what he can be, kind of like we've all said. But I think that for the Mets right now, maybe they've given him too many chances. Maybe he'll work out with another club. So
Yeah,
Megill
like
is
a change of scenery.
yeah, Megill is somebody that I would try to deal. Something else that I would do if there's a team out there that has or that's deep when it comes to bullpen, especially controllable bullpen arms. I would maybe trade 1-for-1 a controllable bullpen arm, bring him in for a Sean Manaea. Manaea, I like Manaea. I like what he brings to the organization off the field as well. But at the same time, when a guy continues to run a high pitch count, can't get out of the fifth, sixth inning, it always taxes the bullpen every fifth day. And when you're talking about replication, Matt, as you mentioned before, from what a Budo can give you, a Christian Scott, I think a Budo could definitely match what Sean Manaea has given the Mets thus far this year. So I think something like that. And Quintana as well. If they want to trade Quintana for a piece or two in the minor leagues, even a bullpen arm that's not controllable but can help us now, I would do it because Quintana, unless he continues to pitch like he has the last two starts, what value does he really have? To me, the one question that I want to pose to you both is if a guy like Severino is pitching like he is, and let's say the Orioles come in and offer two, three of their top 30 prospects and give the Mets an offer as a fan, how do you feel about a guy like Severino being traded that if he continues pitching the way he is, you could have a rotation going into a wild card round, right? That consists of Kodai Senga, a Luis Severino, and a Christian Scott, maybe, or something along those lines, if Scott produces when he comes up. And to me, that's the one thing is that they're not going to trade Severino for a piece X, Y, and Z and then go ahead and trade for another starter. You know what I'm saying? They're going to use the depth. So how can we guarantee that replication from another starter? And that's why, to me, I'm hesitant when it comes to trading a guy like Severino. He's the one guy. Listen, if the Mets weren't in contention for the playoffs, obviously he's a no-brainer. You deal him. But considering the Mets are contending, I don't trade a Severino whatsoever.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out. The Mets, David Stearns and his team really got to do their due diligence in every possible scenario that they're considering. Um, to me, it's just I scratch my head because you're asking a guy like Kodai Senga, who's kind of been on the shelf all year with either shoulder pain, arm pain, this, then the third, to come back, right, and replace it. Whether a guy like a guy like Severino, who's having an all-star type year. And then, a guy like Budo and Scott to say replace Quintana and Manaya. I love their upside, Scott and Budo, but those are young pitchers that are going to be put in the fire basically right away. And then a guy who's been injured all year to be put in the fire right away to try to match the impact Severino had on this team or the pitching staff, the impact, the veteran leadership or the good to like the subpart to good starts that Quintana and Manaya have shown. That's where I scratch my head. Is it gonna work? I hope so. Yeah, you want it to work as a fan, but you're asking young rookies, young 2-year players to, basically get us in the wild card round and pitch big games right away. And especially, Kodai Senga, no doubt he's a 1A, but again, he's been injured all year. That's where I am hesitant as well. And I scratch my head at, okay, I like the idea of trying to get creative here and get younger on the staff and get long termish, but when you still want to compete, at the end of the day, are these youngins going to compete or are they going to fold?
And I know that Matt, you mentioned before, I know that we both know the East is out of play for the Mets, bearing something unforeseen. But you could easily go ahead and trade Quintana Manaya, get whatever pieces you get, whether it be a bullpen arm and a single A arm, right? Like look at last year how the Mets fleeced teams trading a Dominic Leone and this player and that player, right? And getting a prospect like Jeremiah Jackson, per se, or Jeremy Rodriguez. The Mets could go ahead and do that with a Manaya or a Quintana, right? If they wanted to. With that said, again, competing, even though the East is out of question and the wild card game, let's say we get the third wild card spot. Remember, at the end of the day, it's a 3-game series. It's a 3-game series. The Mets can beat the Braves in a 3-game series. They've done it. They've done it. This is not the same old Braves this year, right?
For sure, they aren't the same old Braves.
So the thing is that even if let's say they lose in the wild card round, to me that's still worth it. I would rather a rotation, let's say, of Senga, Severino, Scott, Budo, and Peterson. That would be my right there. And then you have a guy like Megill who can come in if you have Jose Quintana and I would have been dealt, but the way the Mets can get creative, and I don't agree with them. Everyone's talking about Severino being dealt because we're finally playing well, and he is the biggest cog in the rotation. You're just going to take that away. You really trust Kodai, as Rob was saying before. You really trust Kodai, guy who's been shelved all year, to come back and make an impact immediately and pitch to the par that Severino was. Same with Scott and Budo. Like, no.
No, but I also think of it this way. It's like the end goal shouldn't be the going to the wild card. It never should be that. And then and it's like I would
Well,
love to see it, but I just look at the roster from the outside looking in and think to myself, like, could this team actually win those kind of games? When you have dead money with Jeff McNeil, not to mention last year they threw in the white flag. They traded Scherzer and Verlander, two very good pitchers when they're healthy. So it's like you're trying to tell me if they didn't get the right offer for a guy like Mania or Severino, they wouldn't deal him when they did that last summer. It's like, do you think our roster's better now than it was last summer?
yeah,
but
but
not
last summer we weren't a game out of the wild card.
exactly. And Mania,
We'll have to see.
you were talking about value and players that can replace someone. You talk about Mania or Quintana. As I said before, a Budo or a Christian Scott replaces that.
Yeah.
A 60 to 70% Kodai Senga replaces that. But the way that Severino's pitching right now, aside from the
He
outing,
could be an all-star, bro.
he definitely could be an all-star. So the thing is, you're going to trade that one piece. He's been the key to this rotation. And Rob just said the Mets are one game out. You don't trade him. And that kind of when I was reading the Puma tweet, and then I, was listening to an Andy Martino talk about the report, and he confirmed it. It's like I to me, I got the sense that it was kind of Severino that the Mets were, and to me, I don't know. They didn't necessarily say Sevy, but that's kind of what I got, especially knowing what the Mets can get from Severino and how barren the starting pitching market is. But I just don't do it. If it's that barren a team, then we'll maybe give you a little bit more than you were expecting for a Quintana or Mania. You don't trade Severino. That's just bottom line for me.
Yeah, and I would hope, as your friend Maddie, your end goal in anything in life should be to win the championship, bro, not just to make the wild card. So so
Yeah,
so
bro.
that's not my end goal. My end goal is to win, to compete, to go to the playoffs. Like that's part of it. But and the Mets have been preaching all year that they want to compete. They want to be competitive. They want to be competitive for years to come. Well, it does again. Where does it start? It's not if it starts next year. Okay, that's fine. Then why are we one game out of the wild card? Why haven't we traded everyone when we were down when we were 10 games under. And why didn't we throw the white flag then?
Yeah,
You feel me?
let's beat up on Maddie right now. Also, Maddie, are you kidding
Yeah.
me?
Keep
The
No,
going.
last
I'm just saying.
no,
I'm
no, no,
not
no,
beating up
no,
on
no.
them. I'm just saying, like you're talking about trading guys. We're on fire right now. We're the best team in MLB. Like how about let's
I
get
don't
to
know
July.
about
Let's
that
get through
one.
July. No, in
In
the
June.
month of June. Excuse me. Excuse me. All right. Now let me talk because Ian loves to talk all the time and Matt loves to blabber about trade deadline, this and that. No, bro. When you were the best team in June right now, you're 2 games back of 500. Okay. Let's get back to 500 first. Then we go from there. If we don't and we start to lose and go 4 of 6 in our last 10 games, then yes, okay, trade everybody. But fellas, we 1 game back. The National League sucks this year, bro. I'm not saying we're gonna win the World Series, but again, you never know until you get in. And we're that close to quote unquote get in terms of being in a position to get in, excuse me. Then why talk about trading assets or like a guy like Severino? Okay, yeah, they give us top 5 fucking farm system guys. Yeah, give it to us. Go ahead. Have Severino. But fam, I'm not trusting a guy who has 6 MLB starts. Christian Scott, yeah, he reminds me of Zach Wheeler, but is he going to turn out like Zach Wheeler? Probably not. Kodai
All right.
Senga been shelved all year, bro. You're going to tell me he's going to pitch just as good as Severino? Last year he was great, bro. Rookie of the year, or could have been rookie of the year. But come on now, like let's go, man. These analytics that aren't true all the time, bro.
No, yeah.
See
And
the product on the field with the naked eye, bro. These
what I was
robo analytics getting in your head too much. They brainwash you.
see the thing that I was gonna say, Rob, I wasn't saying that you were beating up on him. I was gonna follow up on what you were gonna say, and I was gonna beat up on that even further. All right. I was also gonna say, look, the Phillies are 51 and 26 right now. They're cruising in the NL East. Where did they start their playoff run? As a wild card team. Where'd they make it? The
Exactly.
World Series. And then you
World
mentioned also
Series.
you look at the Diamondback. I mean, you look at the Mets roster construction from the outside looking in and say, can they make the World Series? Bro, you think that the Diamondback fans, the 25 Diamondback fans, looked at the Diamondbacks roster last June, July, and said, oh, yeah, we're making the World Series? Fuck no.
Yeah. We'll have to see, bro.
God,
Let's see what these next 10 games, what this next upcoming
you got to
Yeah,
believe. You
look
got to
ahead
believe.
looks like.
that's the
So
slogan.
let's see. Let's see what happens these next 10.
Yeah, the next 10 will be interesting, and it could be the telltale of our season. The Mets will play 2 at home against the Yankees. David Peterson and Sean Manaea will get the bump respectively. They will face Garrett Cole and then Luis Gil. So not the easiest of tasks, but Gil did get messed up his last start. Then the Houston Astros come into town. They've been playing much better as of recent. We don't have any probable starters on them. For the Mets end, it'll be Jose Quintana, then Tyler Megill, and then most likely either it will be Luis Severino or potentially Christian Scott if they do bring up for the 6-man, and they would start the 6-man then, because then they have the Astros series starts 17 consecutive games in 17 consecutive days. Then they go to Washington for 4. That one will be massive. The Nationals are playing very well. They've been playing well since the Mets swept them. They're 1 game under 500. I believe they're the 3rd wildcard spot right now. Crazy to see, but
they need to sweep them.
Yeah, the Mets need to sweep them or take 3 or 4 or some shit and really make a statement there.
Yep.
To me, I've been saying every week what I want to see. So what I want to see is I want to see the Mets at least take 1 from the Yankees. I want them to take 2 of 3 from the Astros and then take 3 or 4 or sweep the Nationals. Mic drop.
That'd be great. Let's hope so.
Hell yeah. Boys, you got anything else for us?
It's been fun. The Grimace era has been fun. It's nice when we're playing good baseball. Just fucking sucks sometimes when it takes 2 months of absolute garbage, borderline Long Island Duck baseball for it to finally turn around. You know, man, sometimes it pisses me off. So.
Don't disrespect Lou Ford like that. Come on.
Yeah, dude. Who else is on that fucking team?
I don't know. Ruben Diana. No, I don't know.
Nah, dude. Then they signed somebody that was a big name.
Yeah,
I could look it up, but I don't really want to.
I forgot. I think it was a big name, but you know what's funny? I think he got suspended. That big
Jackie Bradley Jr.
Nah.
That's who it was.
They signed Jackie Bradley Jr. Who else is on that Ducks roster?
Someone got suspended. I'm gonna look it up real quick before I sound off. Not sound off.
Chance Cisco, wasn't he a Met?
Yeah, he was.
Chance Cisco is on the Mets. Yeah,
he was on the A's too, I think, or somewhere.
Yeah, Jackie Bradley Jr. He's on their IL.
Where's their team? They just signed somebody from Riverhead. I heard on the radio.
So
they don't show their team, bro.
So we don't have a roster,
bro. They have. I am.
Oh, the Ducks. Here we go. The Ducks.
Steven Woods Jr. is from
Huntington. Dude, Lou Ford plays. Last time I was there, he played.
Yeah, Lou Ford's like a player manager.
Yeah. Matt Seelinger, Westbury.
Is Bobby Blevins?
Nick Tropiano. Nick Tropiano.
Nick Tropiano.
Yeah, he was in the majors.
Yeah, he was on the Astros and the Angels.
Yeah. West Islip. Nick Fonte. That's the guy I was talking about. Hop Hog.
Yep.
Mike Montgomery was in the majors. Josh James. Ramon Santos in AAA. Oh, that's what it was. Wei Yin Chen. He got suspended. That's what it was. Wei Yin Chen.
Wei Yin Chen?
The guy that pitched for the Marlins, the Orioles, remember? Wei Yin Chen, whatever his name is. Lefty, Taiwanese.
I remember him.
He got suspended for what?
He got suspended. I saw that on Twitter. He got suspended, and then they signed the guy from Riverhead.
For what? Do you know?
I forgot.
All right. So
it might have been maybe illegal substance. Who knows, yo?
Wei Yin Chen.
Who knows, man? Oh, those were just the pitchers. Hold on, guys. Hector Gomez is on there. He made the Jackie Bradley Jr., JC Encarnacion.
I'm all set on the LI Ducks roster.
Yeah.
Well, all jokes aside, Mets are 1 game back, just 1 game at a time. This week is obviously very important. We're playing 2 great American League teams. Let's try to go 3 for 2, 3-2. Excuse me. On the other end, vote Francisco Lindor. He deserves it. He's honestly got snubbed the last 1 or 2 years. He deserves it this year. Vote Francisco Lindor to the MLB All-Star Game in 2024.
Yeah, dude, seeing some of these polling numbers, Met fans just don't vote. I think there's a case to be made for Lindor, Alonso to an extent. I mean, JD Martinez, just Matt, I see you shaking your head, but you're just negative.
I said not Alonso.
Whatever. Just
All-Star this year, bro.
All right, whatever. Just vote, Mats. Whatever. All right. With all that said, episode 13 is in the books. Again, they both said it. The Mets are playing real well, so we can only hope that it continues. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and X. We are at Cup of Mets. Subscribe to the podcast, whether it be on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Punch in code Cup of Mets on SeatGeek to get $20 off of your first purchase. And last but not least, be sure to head to cupofmets.com to get all of your latest merch. Switch that order up a little bit, but there it is. For Matthew DeSantis and Robert Venegas, I'm Ian Bosniak. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next week. Let's go Mets. Good night, everybody.